Welcome in to Duckpin TV's coverage of the 2020 Frank Barber Memorial Eastern Classic. We're coming to you from Lucky Strike Lanes in Mansfield, Connecticut for the 90th annual tournament. On your screen right now is Dan Richmond. We are tracking his scores and tracking him as we see him chop through a two-pinner, so he will not start game 10 with a mark. Instead, he'll settle for a 10. Dan Richmond is currently our 7th place bowler based on average. You can see our leaderboard to the right. We are tracking him along with Anthony Benetti, Will Rigby, and Walt Brooks. All right, I'm Brian Ewing. Welcome in other members of our team here, Pat Rufo.
Good afternoon, Brian.
And Jim Kaufman.
Good afternoon.
And we'll be joined by Eric Latasha shortly. Chris Gano is out in the field helping us collect scores and tabulate statistics. All right. We were just watching Dan Richmond here. Jim, I think you've been watching him pretty closely. What have you seen from Dan so far today? You know, he started with 121, 143, 135.
Been a combination of some unfortunate breaks, and then when he does leave makeable shots, he's missed more than his share of spares. So I saw him make the 6-8, and then he punched a two-pinner most recently. So it's a little bit of everything right now, and not striking. So.
All right, thank you, Jim. You can see we're on our big screen TV coverage this year. Put this up on the big screen, pull it up on the laptop. We've got our main feed we're commentating on in the middle. To your right, your leaderboard. To the left, we're tracking some bowler scores frame by frame. That's the top bowlers. We've also got your bowlers tracking on the bottom. We've got lanes 1 and 2 on the bottom left. We've got lanes 9 through 12 on the bottom middle. That's where we'll see Will Rigby in a moment. And then on the bottom right, that's lanes 17 and 18, where we're tracking Dan Richmond. We also see up on your screen Colby D'Antonis. He had a good first set, but has struggled recently. We'll probably be able to speak more to that in a couple of moments. You see bowlers are shifting around here a little bit. Pat, you were with us a couple episodes ago when we watched Chris Kruger. How is his score looking right now, and how do you think he stacks up to the bowlers we've seen so far today?
All right, well, Chris, right now, if he's sitting at home and anybody's keeping him posted, he's probably getting some good news because right now it's going to take something pretty special for any of the bowlers on this shift to eclipse the average of 150.6. 1807's it's a pretty good score, but in past years, that hasn't been a winning score. It's been a long, long time since a score close to the 1700s has been a winning score. It's also been a long, long time, I believe maybe 10 years since we've had a first weekend winner. So Chris is looking pretty good right now.
We just saw Dan Richmond on our main feed there miss the 5-pin for a spare, covers it for 10, so he's at 20 through 2 frames. We're still waiting on our first chance to see Will Rigby. You can follow him in the bottom middle, like we said. We're also working on setting a camera so we can catch Anthony Benetti and Mike Labrie, who are battling it out, not just for a spot on our main leaderboard, but for a spot at the top of the B division. We're also tracking Walt Brooks. He is at 1269, averaging 141, so he is just barely off the open division leaderboard. He's bowling on lanes 19 and 20 right now to the right of Dan Richmond's group. We'll keep you apprised of his score. He's got 19 through 2 frames, and he's on a mark. He's looking to make his way back onto the leaderboard. We've got a lot going on here. We'll try and catch you up as we go along. Well, we've got a little lull in the action here.
Speaking back to Chris Kruger's score, Brian, both Benetti and Richmond, who are our current average leaders on this shift, are both looking at scores for the next 3 games over 500. And as Duckman Mullers know, that's a fairly significant number. 500 is a tough score for 3 games, but it's also a number that's not 530 or 540. It's in the 5 teens, so it's not out of reach, but it's a significant achievement if they can get there.
Certainly. One of the big stories coming into today was that we only had 5 900s. Bowlers bowl 2 6-game blocks. There were only 5 900s coming into today. And I don't believe we had any on the morning shift on our last episode. Even John Blaze didn't quite hit 900. All right, let's head on down to lanes 9 and 10. That bald gentleman right there is Will Rigney.
Balding.
Oh.
Did you say tall? You said tall, right?
Tall Will Rigney.
He's getting ready to step up onto lane 10 to begin his 10th game of this Eastern Classic. And he begins with a 7-9 split.
And that's an ouch.
Jim, you were watching Will pretty closely. The past game, what did you see from Will in game 9?
Well, he started off pretty fast. He had a double halfway through the game. Looked like he might make something of it. He ended up ripping the middle. And then he went off the side for 2 each of the next 2 frames. So that was a real momentum killer. So Will ends up with a 9 box this frame. Start this game.
All right,
got some work to do.
We'll head
Everyone's got some work to do.
Oh, certainly. Head back down to lane 18 for Dan Richmond. Dan Richmond's coming in today with 890. He had 159, 140, 118, 182, 149, 142. So very, very solid opening 6 games. All right, just that 118 blip there. Began today 121, 143, 135. So slightly off pace, but looking to pick it back up. The shot is on the phone. You can see the camera. So use the screen to line it up. Don't press anything. Dan Richmond there off the side to the left. Leaves the row of 4 there.
4 horsemen right. And that's been kind of the story of the day for Dan, that he's putting the ball in the general area where he wants it to be, but just not getting the breaks, whether it's on the first ball or pick a 2-pinner, takes 2 off a 4-pinner. Yeah, he's just struggling.
Just
9 for Dan.
Add to that, Jim. It's been the story of the day for many of our bowlers.
Right.
I don't want to single out Dan Richmond because I've been seeing that over and over throughout the lanes.
Yeah, no one can really get an extended streak going here to rise into contention.
Yeah, one of the topics I wanted to focus on specifically from the last 2 weekends, just observing and then participating, is whoever can make the adjustments quickest on each pair is the one you have to watch out for. And thus far, it's been a very difficult task. We watched Chuck Kruger in our previous broadcast. He was cranking them strikes seemingly, and then all of a sudden the strikes went away and things got different. So we weren't sure if he was going to hang on with that 1807, but now it's looking like everybody was going to deal with the same exact problems that Kruger was dealing with. So,
well, one exception to that may be Anthony Benetti. He's vaulted onto the leaderboard during this final shift of the tournament. He's now in 6th place, and he started his 10th game with 3 spares in a row.
And he can really, he's the kind of a bowler who if he locks and loads on that head pin, he can start stringing strikes, which could put him in a position where he can get that 520 or 518 or whatever the number might be that he actually needs.
Another bowler that we are keeping an eye on is on our screen right now in the red shirt. That's Mike Labrie. On his first ball, he left the 5-6.
Of course,
He's trying to catch up to Anthony Benetti in the B division, at least. We can also see Dan Richmond on that camera. Gets up there and leaves another split, the 5-10 this time.
Wasn't a great ball. You'd be the first to tell you that. It was definitely light in the 1-2, but didn't get any type of mix. Oh, nice. Dan slid that over clean, so that's the second split I've seen him make in the last half hour or so, along with the 6-8. We're waiting to get an update on Mike Labrie's score.
And just a little lull in the action here. It's usually the case where it seems like all of our top bowlers are always up at the same exact time.
Never stops, Brian.
That's why this setup on your screen right now is pretty good. If there's a bowler you particularly are interested in tracking, you can follow along with them ball for ball, even if we are chatting about somebody else and focusing on their bowling.
Not for nothing, Brian, but even in the previous shifts with less bowlers, this is a full shift, and it's still the same tendency for the top bowlers, the bowlers that we're trying to focus on.
Yep.
Just continue to rotate through the same cycle.
Every time. All right. So waiting on a couple of bowlers to come up here. Will Rigby, I think, will be next. There he is. Again, the tall gentleman right there, tossing his ball in the air. That's Mr. Rigby, a former winner of the Eastern Classic. If you've been following Duckpin TV at all, you would know that. You can also go back in our archives and check that out. He was the 2016 winner. All right, that was the one where it came down to him and Leo Montero, very last frames. All right, so here's Rigney. He's got 2 9 boxes in a row to start his 10th game. Really needs a mark here. There he goes.
Looks like a mark.
That's a strike.
Does he have an earpiece? He's listening to you?
ESPN.
Yeah.
Duckpin TV.
Yeah. Keep talking to him.
Thought you meant ESP.
Oh, well, Brian is communicating to Will through some unknown source.
All right. There's Mike Labrie again, making a run at our B division. Struggling a little bit this game. He's got 43 through 4, so he certainly needs to pick things up. Elsewhere, we've got Walt Brooks at 56 through 5, also struggling. Anthony Benetti is a bowler that we are watching very closely, 65 plus through 4. He's probably in the best position out of everyone bowling at the moment. He'll be shifting over to lanes 15 and 16 after game 10, so he'll be in camera shot bowling on these lanes that Mike Labrie is bowling on right now. If you want to stay with Labrie, bottom left-hand corner of your screen, we're going over to Dan Richmond now on lane 18. This is a pretty critical ball for him, filling a spare in the 4th. Gets in there, drops 9. Spinning and spinning and spinning.
Yeah, I think it's a little too far in front of the 7. Yeah, he's going to hit the pedal. But still lucky he had the 5-7 up there for a second.
All right. Puts him at 47 through 4. A spare here would give him an opportunity at around 65 through 5. And not even really close on that one.
That was obvious from the moment it came out. From behind his back.
All right, let's welcome in the fourth member of our broadcast team today, Eric Latasha.
Hey guys, nice coverage so far. It's shaping up. This game's shaping up pretty interestingly. Got Benetti off to a nice start here, right?
Well, 4 marks in a row.
All right, so
9 drops and 7. Those nice turning for strikes going forward, and we're going to be looking at something to talk about.
Yeah. Tony kind of came out of nowhere on us. Has a really good start to this block and single-handedly made us move our cameras around.
Put you to work.
Yeah, well done, Tony. I mean, happy to do it. If he continues, this is a great start to his second block so far.
Of course, he would be another in a seemingly string of. Anthony would be another in a string of Rhode Island bowlers who have, in recent years, seemingly owned this tournament a little bit. Rigby and Richmond, and even the year with Rigby was Montero. We've had Ronnie Pelletier, who's technically out of Massachusetts, but bowls in Rhode Island.
Yeah,
So
you're right.
a lot of Rhode Island
short list of
representation.
Yeah, short list of bowlers we spent a lot of time talking about over the last few years. And Tony's a nice name, new name to talk about a lot here.
and in fact, we did catch him on camera just then, just to the left of Mike Labrie. On lane 14, we saw Anthony pick up the 10-pin for a spare. So he's at 84 through 5. And again, he's in the best shape right now of every single bowler on the lanes. All the other top bowlers were tracking. So we see a nice strike from Mike Labrie. Are really barely above their frame, if at all. Switch over to Will Rigby. He'll be on the far left of your screen. He's shooting the 7-pin. And he converts. So I believe that's a 9-drop and a spare, filling that strike. So that'll put him at... No, I'm being told that's not correct. So we'll fix that score for you in a moment. Meantime, we'll shift back down to Dan Richmond, who's got 56 in the 5th.
Whoever's on this side.
Just to keep things in perspective, Benetti's start is exactly what he needs in order to eclipse the current leader, our first weekend leader. Anthony's going to have to do this the entire rest of his tournament. So he's got 25 boxes. He's going to have to pretty much do the same thing all the way out. Not so much for the B division victory, but certainly to take over the leaderboard for the Open.
You saw Walt Brooks. No, you kind of saw him in your bottom right camera on lane 19. He picked up a spare. So we see Dan Richmond again miss left. He is struggling this game.
Body language says a lot. He's
slumped
starting to droop
shoulders.
a little bit.
It's funny, he came in this morning and said, very confident, I bowl well at this house. My bowl works really well here. But you do have to place it in the right spots.
Yep.
And he's struggling a little bit with his placement right now. I don't know if you guys have picked up on anything that he's doing, particularly in his approach. But we'll kind of keep our eye on trying to diagnose what's going on with him.
I think brings me back to my theme of the adjustments. I think every bowler out here is trying to make adjustments on every pair, and you know when you're thinking about something other than throwing the ball in the pocket every time, moving here, moving there, throwing a different release point, it gets a little tricky.
All right, Will Rigney up on your screen now. Ooh,
Yikes.
rough. That's the 4-5. To catch you up on his last frame, he did drop 9, missed the 7-pin, and did convert it for a 10. Gets one more, so he'll be in the mid to upper 50s through 5. Also in rough shape. The last time we had a first weekend winner was, in fact, Walt Brooks. Is that correct, guys? Walt Brooks?
I believe so. 2010.
2010. Yep. Last time we had a score lower than 1807 win the Eastern Classic was in 1975. That was a 1765 from Gene Fairlett. So we're in kind of uncharted territory here. Chris Kruger, 1807. That could hold up. Could hold up.
If I was watching, Anthony Benetti just went directly through the middle on his spare load and left the 2-3-4-6. So ends his string of spares, but still puts him plus 37, 38, 39 plus in the 6 box. And he needs to start this stretch of marks again right away.
Yeah, what's been impressive this game for Will, for Tony, all spares,
Yeah.
No luxury of strikes. He's had to earn everything that he has up there, and he's converted everything. The first open was rip in the middle. So
even that last box, he was dead nuts on the head pin.
Right.
Good ball.
That's been one of the conversation pieces this weekend. Strikes are fairly hard to come by. Stringing them together is not impossible, but level of difficulty is high. So if you catch a double, even a triple, that is a major, major turning point in your day, in your game.
I mean, speaking from my own experience this morning, that's what happened. I was throwing the ball, chop, 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 and then all of a sudden I got a double and a triple here and there. It happens without really, you're not paying attention. You're just throwing the same ball, and all of a sudden the ball that was ripping the middle is now bombing them off the deck. So it's all about whether or not you can control that middle. The middle is important, but it's also dangerous, as we've been seeing. Some of these leaves have been incredible with the 5-6, the 4-5. It's just crazy.
All right, we got Dan Richmond up here now. Leaves another split, so he is struggling. That's going to be a tough one, so we'll go back down to Will Rigney, who also has just left a very, very ugly split. What is that, the 2-3, 7-10?
It's nasty.
Fly back to Richmond. Makes a decent effort at it, but is no good. He'll try to cover it up for 10, and does. So he's at 77 through 7 frames, and the level of urgency needs to be high right now for Dan Richmond. He's probably got a mark out here.
For all these bowlers, it's what's happening now is that the frames are running out, so strikes are going to become more and more imperative, and they're not easy to come by. They're not at all.
Back down to Will Rigney. He picked up the 3-pin on the second ball. Oh, picks up the nice 2-7-10. And that's a 10 for him.
But unfortunately, not the second ball, third ball, only a 10.
And again, all our bowlers, our top bowlers, are taking a hiatus right now. But I think we will be able to catch part of Anthony Benetti's frame here. He's going to be on that lane just to the left of Mike Labrie in the red shirt. So once Labrie finishes this frame, we will get a chance to see Anthony Benetti. who, again, we'll add, will be sliding over to these lanes, and we'll have a nice camera shot of for his last 2 games. Benetti is at 99 through 6, coming off a frame where he started with a 6 on his first ball. And again, chops through the middle here. That's only 5. So a couple little challenges here for Anthony to work out. Again, we were talking in our last episode about the mental aspect of the game here as Anthony picks up 3. Getting yourself through these challenges, right, where you rip the middle or you leave a couple of splits, is a very large portion of our sport. On the right side of your screen there, you saw Dan Richmond. He's left 3 in the corner after his first ball, as Anthony Benetti picks up 1 more for 9. We'll go down here for Dan Richmond, shooting those 3 in the corner. Sense of urgency is high for Dan at the moment, and he misses again. He is just well off the mark at the moment. Nine for Richmond, so that brings him only to 86 through 8. He is going to fall, perhaps off the leaderboard.
Yeah, just doesn't have it today. I think mentally he was in it early on in this block, but just a combination of bad breaks and missing spares. Just I think he kind of feels that it's not going to be his day, and it's going to take a lot for him to gather himself. But as of right now, definitely struggling.
All right, Brian, you know I like math, right?
I do, yes.
Okay. So, Brian, Anthony Benetti right now is down to 23 boxes. He needs to average 18 pins a box going out. So, do the math, if you will.
18 times 10.
He needs to go 18 times 23.
Right. 18 times 10, and then 3 more of those.
Right.
Yeah.
So, he has a lot of work cut out for him. And, again, Chris Kruger looking pretty good right now.
Will Rigby up on your screen now. Nice first ball. Leaves a makeable spare to shoot out this time. That should be some solace for him. But again, really, it's panic mode for most of these bowlers. You got to go out and you got to get these marks, and you got to stock up on them. If Benetti needs 18 pins on average for his next 23 boxes, then you need more than that. You're right. If you're Chris Kruger, you're sitting pretty right now at home, watching on TV. Pretty confident.
Yeah, and maybe instead of ordering takeout, you might want to put on the shirt and tie,
make
celebrate.
That nice dinner reservation.
Make a reservation for a little celebratory dinner.
Even Johnny Blaze in that second position is looking pretty solid, even in second right now.
Yeah, one of the big stories here. We didn't get to talk a lot about Chuck Paris on our first episode when he was bowling, but 1726, he came back with a huge 6-game block, second block, and yeah, he had 932, Chuck Paris.
That's the highest. It's the highest block of the tournament, I believe.
No, Kruger did have 947, his first block. So, but again, 5 900 sets, 5 900 blocks. That's it.
And Brian, even on top of that, 8, as I believe right now as we stand, as this shift is finishing, only 8 1700s on the leaderboard.
Sorry. Dan Richmond, as you saw, just covered a spare, kind of the reverse single, where he clocked the 6-pin in his first ball and then covered it for a spare. So
a little bit backwards, but hey,
he's struggling.
Whatever works.
And he barely got the 7-pin to topple for the spare. So he's
trying to catch a little Anthony Benetti there. He's kind of bowling underneath that American flag. That's a 10 for him. Still a 7-10 standing. So Pat, what is that? 18.35 now,
Now
or
he's,
something
gonna,
like
now,
that?
now he's looking to average over 20 a box, which is not something you can do easily. Looks like Anthony's going to have to start throwing a bunch of strikes.
Speaking of strikes, Will Rigby, if you're watching the bottom middle camera, just did just that. Filled a strike, so he's at 97 in the eighth right now. We're also tracking a bowler, Stacy Kelly, who's having quite a good game. He's got 145 in the ninth. He is a B bowler, won the B division last year. And he very well could jump up onto our B division leaderboard after his 10th game. Yeah, guys, you know, if we talk for a moment about the typical winning score here, if you're over 1,800, you can pretty much bank on being in the top three. You know, John Blaze, John Zekas, Mark Anastasi probably left thinking, oh, you know, I had a decent weekend. I bowled all right. But those three guys have a legitimate shot at keeping the 2, 3, and 4 spots.
They sure do. They really, really do. I mean, even Chuck might have a legitimate shot at holding on to 5th.
All right, so bowlers are coming to the conclusion of their 10th game here. So bowlers will be shifting to the right one pair of lanes in just a frame or two. Our cameras are set up to bring you Anthony Benetti. We will catch Dan Richmond's 11th and 12th games. And we were following Walt Brooks. He's fallen off the pace a little bit. So we can move cameras around if need be, but definitely Anthony Benetti will be sliding into a camera view, and Dan Richmond will stay in view as well. Oh, there we go. Stacy Kelly, his score is in. He's jumped up to the main leaderboard, 14-17 through 10 games. Math's easy on that one, Pat. 141.7 average.
That's an easy one. But he still needs almost 390 pins going out to take the overall lead. But excellent game. He must have an excellent game from Stacy there. Just to update your numbers, Anthony was at 17.6, which you can't do. He's now at 18.02 pins per box for 22 boxes. So he's still not within double out range, but he's got a ways to go.
Well, that's one.
There it is, right on order.
If you're looking on the bottom left camera, you saw Anthony Benetti throw a strike. I think all morning we've said that he is the bowler in the best position right now. Best position in terms of score and best position in terms of the eye test. How does he look? Is he confident? Is he throwing the ball well? I think we could all say that
he looks very relaxed. He's the only real boxes he's had struggles with is when he's ripped through the middle, which is, as we all know, not a terrible ball. It's just a hair off.
Here's Will Rigby. He is also on a strike. This would be very big for his day if he could double up here. And that's very light to the left of the head pin. That's going to be difficult to convert.
Eric, what do you call that leave? I mean, what's your description of that? I call it ugh, but that's all I got.
An apt sound effect to apply to it. I mean, that's pretty close to something that you call the Greek church, but I don't know. It's just really low percentage shot.
So will put 8 pins on his strike. Look to probably get a 9 here, so that'll put him at 114 through 9. Definitely falling off the pace, and he is certainly going to fall off our leaderboard after this game. Let's see. Well, let's take a trip down to lane 19 and 20. Quick check-in with Dan Richmond. Things not going well down there for him. 111 is his final score in Game 10. So not good news pretty much all around.
It's a struggle out there in the duckpin streets today. Unless your name is Anthony.
It's not pretty right now. It's not pretty at all. You're seeing that over and over and over again. The 3-4-6, the 2-4-6. It's over and over on every lane.
Defending champ had a decent game in the 160s there. He opened his last two, but it's Billy Thomas. But he's well off the pace.
Defending champion Billy Thomas.
Right.
Wow.
Seeing a lot of dejected faces around the bowling
A
center.
lot of defeated
today.
looks on people.
But,
yes.
this is the point we talked about on previous episodes, that around Game 10, we see bowlers fall down off the leaderboard and some new bowlers jump up. We talked about kind of some of the bowlers with the pressure. They bowled well in the first block of 6. They really want to do well, and they don't meet expectations, and they fall off. Whereas some bowlers who maybe came in with no expectations, didn't really bowl well in their first block of 6, come in, have bowled well, and they jump up.
Yeah.
So usually this is the time we see some movement in the leaderboard. We saw Stacy Kelly jump up to 10th. We saw Dan Richmond fall off the Open Division leaderboard.
Well, if you look at our leaderboard, Brian, what you're seeing more and more and more is 12 on the end. The bowlers that have completed their 12 games are all starting to occupy most of our leaderboard, which was not the case when we started this morning.
Indeed. See Will Rigby there pick up a 3-pinner for a spare. Brings him to 124. He's looking to get into just the 130s. That will still bring him down off the leaderboard, but put him in better position to get back on it after Game 11.
Interesting names on the current leaderboard. Young bowler from Connecticut, a bowler with some serious bowling genes, Mr. Brandon Dominique, who's now sitting in 9th place with the potential to move up to even 8th if something happens above him. But 9th place would be a good finish for that young man.
Absolutely. All right, bowlers are kind of just shifting around to their last pair of lanes. At the Eastern Classic, you bowl your first 4 games in each block on a different pair. You slide to the right one after each game. And your games 5 and 6, you bowl on the same pair. So these bowlers will make their last move currently or in the next minute or two.
This is Anthony Benetti's first shot for a double, and we're going to talk about doubles a lot over the next course of the next 2 games.
All right, especially when your average frame needs to be
Almost,
18 or more.
Yeah, almost 20, right?
Again, Anthony Benetti's bowling just under the American flag. That's his pair right now. He's going to shift over to the pair that you see on your main camera in just a moment. But we should be able to catch part of his last frame here. He'll be bowling on lane 13. Again, that's just down and to the right of the American flag. You'll see him pop onto your screen now.
Wow.
That's a 9 drop. He's got the 10 pin still standing. Looking confident.
You know, Anthony came in, as you were just talking about, Brian. Anthony came in this morning into this 7th through 12th games with just probably the aspiration to win the B title and maybe make a move up the leaderboard. Now he's found himself in a position where he's got a chance to win the whole thing.
Oh. And that's going to hurt him here. He just missed that single pin.
It was the first break we've seen him miss.
In quite a while. That's a positive, right? You can say, hey, I made them all before this. Right? It's not a trend. It's nothing I'm going to continue repeating.
Right.
It's just an anomaly.
Or does he let that carry over?
Right.
I left one out there in the 10th. I could have had 150s. Instead, I only had 140s. So, yeah, we'll find out very soon how if that affects him or not.
All right, so Benetti's shifting over to lanes 15 and 16 here at the Lucky Strike Lanes in Mansfield, Connecticut for his last 2 games. We're also going to continue tracking, or we're going to start tracking Stacy Kelly. He's making a move up the leaderboard. And, those are the only 2 bowlers
it's
on the
about it.
leaderboard right now that are currently bowling.
Anthony's got to average 184, and Stacy has to average, I think, 190. So they got some serious work to do.
But not impossible work. Not
I'm
impossible
sorry.
work
195.
for Stacy Kelly.
Stacy
That's
Kelly
what
has to
he-
average 195. Anthony Benetti has to average 184. And for those of you out there in Duckpin world, you know those scores are large. Let's just say something special is going to happen.
Right, we talk about high-scoring games in the tournament so far. We've got just 1 200 game. We've got just a handful in the 190s and just a handful in the 180s. Really, really big games have been hard to come by.
Yep.
And I think that comes down to the lack of strikes, lack of doubles. It's hard to score big here. We saw that in our last episode with John Blaze. He couldn't really ever get above 160. He had 3 161s and 1 162. And he was bowling fantastic.
Yeah, he was throwing the ball well. He was crushing the ball and not getting strikes. And he's used to getting strikes. So, Brian, again, alluding to our leaderboard, look, 10 out of 12 now. The only 2 bowlers left on the leaderboard from this shift are Anthony and Stacy. Over
That's
half
it.
the leaderboard was populated with bowlers from this shift, and now 4 of them have dropped off.
All right, so I think what we're going to do here is we'll keep a very close eye on Anthony Benetti. He is the bowler we're tracking most closely. And on our bottom screens, we will let you keep track of your other bowlers. All right. So on the bottom left, that is lanes 1 and 2. Walt Brooks is on lanes 1 and 2 if you would like to continue following him. He is at 1407, so 140.7 average so far through 10 games. He's close to jumping on the leaderboard, but needs needs a game in the 150s to jump back up there. He has an opportunity. So again, you can track Walt Brooks in the bottom left on lanes 1 and 2. You can also track Will Rigby and Stacy Kelly in the bottom middle of your screen. Will Rigby will be on lanes 11 and 12 to the right in that picture, and Stacy Kelly will be on lanes 9 and 10 in the left of that picture. We're also going to move the camera on, currently on lanes 17, 18. We're going to shift it over to lanes 19 and 20, so we can, or you can track Dan Richmond and Colby D'Antonis if you would like. Dan Richmond is at 1,400 even, so he's close to jumping back on the leaderboard as well.
And
See,
Stacy Kelly started his.
See, a Dunnick name jumped on the leaderboard there after game 10.
Yeah, Colin backed his way into 12th.
Tied for
11th with Jesse Deach.
Jesse Deach was one of the bowlers a few years back when one of our inaugural broadcasts where we were kind of communicating with him as a first weekend leader. Didn't hang on,
Right.
But looks like Mr. Kruger has a better opportunity to do that.
Defending champion Billy Thomas. will be relinquishing the crown this year. And as each minute goes by, it seems more and more likely that it will be given to Chris Kruger. Only time will tell.
He'd argue that it wasn't given to him, but I mean,
Taken away, right? You didn't.
All right, so again, in the bottom right of your screen, you've got Dan Richmond there. Nice 9 drop on his first ball in his
Second frame.
Yep.
Sorry. Spare in the first. And we'll be keeping an eye on these bowlers. If all of a sudden, if any of them pops a big score, we can just as easily bring them back on the frame-by-frame scoring. But for right now, we're focusing on Anthony Benetti and Stacy Kelly.
Again, Stacy Kelly on the bottom middle camera shot on your screen. He's bowling with the man in the blue shirt there. That's Eric Pellet. So he'll be bowling on that set of lanes. And here's our first opportunity to see Anthony Benetti up close. He just walked off the lane there, getting ready to go up on lane 15 in a moment.
just point out a little. I'm sorry, Brian.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that Anthony Benetti had 818 his first set, 127, 138, 133, 140, 146, 134. So nothing really spectacular.
Just enough.
Nothing really very poor, but just
same thing. This
pretty good
same
bowling
thing today. I mean, he had one good one, one big one, but all the other ones were, good scores, but not out of the world.
nice 9 drop for Anthony Benetti there. If you're following Stacy Kelly, he just threw the ball on your bottom middle screen. He's the one in the cap there. So again, as always, our top bowlers are up at the same time.
This is a somewhat rare occasion, Brian, where you have two of the B division leaders actually pretty well entrenched in the open leaderboard. That's not a normal occurrence. That normal open leaderboard is a lot of high average A bowlers.
Yeah, we just saw Anthony there miss his second single pin spare
Consecutive.
opportunity in a row,
Yeah,
right? He finished the last game missing a single as well. Stacy Kelly also missed his single in his second frame there, so misses it again. So he's at 28 through 2. Benetti at 9 through 1.
So we left Anthony. He missed a single in the 10th of his last game. We were wondering how that might carry over. So now he started this game dropping 90, missing that as well. So I don't know if that's building up in his mind or.
It's funny, Jim. I was just thinking, coming into the afternoon, he had no aspirations of being in the pursuit of the Open, and the moment that it maybe clicked that he was, does that make a difference? Who knows? I mean,
right.
Do you start thinking differently? Do you start throwing the ball differently? Is there a little tightness? It's a tough one.
Yep.
It's a tough mindset to.
And so now he's kind of flirted with the overall lead or overall leaderboard, but Stacy Kelly's now only 22 pins behind him in the B division.
Right.
So
right.
It's got some work to do.
And that would be, I believe, Stacy Kelly's second B division win of the last 3 years. I believe
Right.
he won
Yeah,
the
he's
B
been
division
a perennial contender.
Right.
Like first, second, third. It seems like just about every year recently. Stacy bowls here at Lucky Strike Lanes as well as Holiday Lanes in Manchester, Connecticut. Anthony Benetti from Rhode Island. He is a bartender by trade.
Yeah, Twin Rivers.
Twin River Casino.
From what I understand, he's a pretty popular bartender, too.
Well, there aren't too many unpopular
gonna
bartenders,
say,
right?
yeah, if you are, you're
giving
not
me
a
drinks,
bartender,
I'll like you as long as you're giving me drinks.
Unpopular bartenders aren't bartenders for long.
Last
right?
I knew, he was working at the Shipyard Bar at Twin River. So if you're there, go look for Anthony. I'm sure he'll be happy to sign an autograph or pour you a cold one, or both.
And yes, gentlemen, we are going to start stretching as
Well, we want to bring out, the other side of the bowlers, what they do off the
I'm
lanes.
just saying, it's becoming more and more apparent as the frames click away unless something dramatic happens, we're going to be talking about other things besides
Okay,
a
so
new leader.
while we're waiting for our top bowlers to get back up on this shift, I think we would be remiss in our duties if we didn't talk about why scores are so low in this particular tournament. Like we said, the 1807, we're projecting that is probably going to be the winning score. That will be the lowest winning score of the Eastern Classic since 1975, when Gene Fairlett won the tournament with 1765. So we'll get back to that topic of conversation in a moment. We'll give you guys a couple of minutes to mull that over as Anthony Benetti and Stacy Kelly begin their next frames. Benetti coming off that single miss in the last frame. Pops it in there for a strike.
My initial answer to your question, Brian, this is a wood lane house, and they act differently, and bowlers have to make adjustments. That's the downside. The upside is this tournament is run in such a way that everyone bowls on the same lanes. So you can't really say, well, they got the bowl on the hot pair, or they got the bowl on or they didn't have to bowl on the bad pair. Everybody bowls on the same lane, so it's fair.
All right.
It's frustrating,
right,
but it's fair.
Right, for everyone. Just
Well, I don't think that really answers the question, Pat. I'm gonna hold you to this.
Wood.
Yeah, right. And you just said well, it's fair for everyone. And yes, that's true, right? Everyone's bowling on the same pairs, but we're used to seeing a winning score close to 1860, give or take a little bit every year recently. So why is it 1807? That's pretty significant, a 50-pin drop in the winning score. Only one bowler over 1800. Usually we have at least three. So anyone want to speculate?
Eric, you got something?
I don't know, guys. Statistically speaking, it's really, really hard to explain this with just a random outcome. I mean, you have to go back so far into the history of the tournament to find a winning score like this, to find so few 900s, to find so few 1800s, as it seems like it's going to be here.
1-200.
1-200 game. There's got to be something going on with conditions, and not generally speaking in this house, but at least this weekend, that have held the scores down, and
the past
and
two
have made
weekends.
it. Yeah, but I talked to a lot of bowlers on this shift who ended up in the 850 neighborhood. I even talked to the bowler on the screen here, the champ from last year. None of them are sitting here saying that the scores aren't out there and that the pins aren't out there.
They're blaming themselves.
Yeah, I think the difference might be, to Brian's point, it might just be really an unusual year to string, in a difficult year to string strikes together, and to really get the high games logged. That said, I looked at the top 5 or 6 bowlers here on this shift going into today. If you look at their scores yesterday, all but one of them had 2 games 130 or lower in their first shift, and the one guy who didn't, unfortunately, was Roy Kuchevsky. He had a 95 no mark 95 game that was really not his fault. He picked off 2 two-pinners and really just didn't have many opportunities to score. So it's hard here. I think it probably goes to strikes if I got to point to something, that they're not out there as readily as they have been in anything recently,
so
recent history.
As we see in your bottom middle screen, Stacy Kelly threw a strike. He was filling a spare there, so he's got 58 plus through 4 frames. He's in pretty good shape to continue his pace of 141.7. If we took all the scores and we distributed them, what do you think? We'd see a pretty big bump around 130 and 140. But outliers in the 170s, 180s, really. I
got to look at myself as a perfect example. I had 3 games under 110. I had 3 games 165 or higher, and I threw the same ball, I thought. Some games the strikes were there, and some games they weren't. And I don't know. I can't explain it, having even experienced it myself and watched it for 2 weekends. It's hard.
Yeah, there's a popular side pool among the bowlers called the 128 and over pool, where in order to stay in the pool you have to have at least 128, right? And once you're below 128, you're out of the pool. For the first block of this shift, I was told that after 4 games there are only 2 people left.
Wow, that's unusual.
And ended up being decided in the 5th game.
There have been tournaments and pro tours where there have been multiple bowlers left at the end of the tournament.
Right. At the end of 10 games, 12 games,
Correct.
whatever it may be.
All right, Anthony Benetti up here now for his 3rd frame. He's on a strike. Remember that powerful rocket he just threw on lane 16? Heavy, 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 and gets the 10 pin to go.
He gave it the wave. Throw the hands up in the air and make a motion.
Doing a little investigative work, just reached out, texting with Chris Kruger.
Hey, nice job,
See
Jim.
if he's doing any scoreboard watching, and he goes, I have a few people telling me things. So I
Benetti
told him he's
covers the
looking
spare?
pretty good. He's nervous, but I just sent him a screenshot of the current standings. So I'm waiting to get a reaction from him here. But
Probably not as nervous now.
I'd feel a little bit better if I was him and I saw what we're seeing so far for scores.
Yeah, and if you're keeping track of some of the other bowlers, bottom right-hand side of your screen, Dan Richmond up right now, working with that difficult split. He's at 56 through 4, or no, sorry, 65 through 5, plus add that 6 box in there, and he's at 71 through 7. We'll try and get an update on Walt Brooks. He's on lanes 1 and 2. And we've also got Will Rigby nearby as well. He's very early in his 11th game.
Back to your point, Brian, 1860 is roughly 5 pins per game average for 12 games. That's a significant difference in duck pin bowling. A 5-pin differentials, mark a game maybe. So it's not just a little bit off. It's off by quite a bit.
Yeah, indeed. If you're thinking about the 10-pin Pro Tour, all right, our scores are probably, what would you say,
70 pins, 75
70%
pins?
of what they score?
Oh, I would say, yeah. I mean, I think an average 10-pin weekend, I think the bowlers average in the 220s, 230s. And, our top bowlers average usually in the 150s. That's usually the top. And we have one in the 150s, so it's close. But the drop-off from there is significant. I mean, to me, looking at the 10th and 12th place at 140, 141, that's to me where the difference is. Not as glaring as at the top, but how quickly it drops off.
Yeah, and then if you're in that middle pack on the leaderboard between 4, 5, and 10, you're talking a matter of just 20 or 30 pins at the end of the tournament.
Yep. Right.
At this point, so.
Well, right now 7 through 12 is a difference of 15 pins.
All right, Anthony Benetti up on the main screen now. He is on a spare. Pops it in there. Doesn't get the messenger to take out the 10. So his first ball's looking good the past couple of frames. It was the kind of iffy single pin he shot in the first. He made one in the third, so let's see if he can convert here in the fourth.
Yeah, I'm going to
Indeed, he
backtrack,
does.
Jim. I'm going to backtrack. I don't think there's any pressure on Anthony. He missed a couple spares, but that's because he's missed a couple spares.
Yep.
I don't
Short
think it
memory.
had nothing-
Short memory. You need to have a short memory.
No,
He's
he looked
bounced right
really
back.
comfortable on that ball.
Stacy Kelly also just cruising along here, 78 plus through 5.
So that subplot of the B division,
It's a battle.
Stacy's
It's
still
a
on
battle.
Anthony's tail.
Eric, I think you were just checking out Walt Brooks. What have you seen from him?
Yeah, he started game 11, spare 8, spare 7, 9 box, and I think from here I saw an 8 box. That puts him at about 52 in the fourth. Not a lot coming together down there on 1 and 2 for him.
Hey, Eric, does this watching these scores does it make you wonder or wish maybe you bowled?
Maybe yes and no.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been a little bit of an interesting year for me personally. Not scoring that well and not that confident coming into an event like this, but it is interesting. What a year. Then again, I don't know that I'm going to defy the trend that everybody else seems to be.
Right. Yeah. On one hand, hey, I only need to average 150. I could have won, and then it's well.
Yeah. On the other hand,
I'm subject to the same conditions that everyone else is for this tournament. So
right, John.
And my own limitations.
Brian, how did you find out, Brian? How did you feel? You bowled
How did
yesterday?
I feel?
Yesterday all day.
Well, it was tough in the morning. Chopped and split a lot. Wasn't throwing the ball great. So it was rough out there. In the evening, I bowled at 898, which was good, but it was pretty much the max. I maxed out. I made 26 out of 26 single pin spares.
Oh my God. Hello.
I had 5 strikes only. Everybody kept telling me, "Oh, if you just catch a double, you catch a double or a triple, you're going to be in like the 950s."
Yeah.
And 9 drop. The only time I had 2 strikes in a game was on the set of lanes where you were awarded if you got the most spares.
And so you did.
So
womp womp.
yeah. So personally, for me, the strikes were not out there. The scores definitely were. You could definitely drop 8 or 9, have lots of spares to shoot at. I think maybe that's where we're seeing some of these bowlers struggle is they can't convert a high enough percentage of spares to keep themselves in contention.
So I think you just answered your own question, Brian.
Oh, boy.
The answer to your question, without doubles and triples, the averages are going to be down 4 or 5 pins. And there you have it. I mean, you just said it. That seems to me to be the answer.
I can't help but wonder that last frame we saw from Tony Benetti. He left that 9-pin or the 10-pin rather. The messenger came over and didn't get it. I wonder if we would just watch the example of what we're talking about. In years past that carries, and this year it hasn't.
That's a subtle difference.
Right. And
but
strikes,
in the end, that's it.
Strikes are an important part of pretty much any bowler's momentum. In tournaments like this, and if they're just not there, they make you work harder. It's going to take a little bit more to even convert spares consistently. So,
All right, Benetti up again on our main feed. Again, working on strike, spare. He is hot. And
You got a sleeper back there.
278.
Would you consider this one of the more difficult spares in the game? I know how there's
of
an
the
easy
ones
way
that
to
you see more commonly than others, this is a very difficult one. There's no real, very narrow window to make it clean. Usually you have to be kicking the pins around to like that.
Sort of like that, you mean?
Kind of like that. Right.
And that's an unusual way to shoot it, to have it pop back off the back. Usually you got to knock.
Almost kind of slide.
Knock the
slide
4-pin
the
into the
2-pin,
wall and have it wiggle around and come back and hit the 8. Or you take the ball, you hit the 4, have the ball go into the 7, and then bounce the 4 off the right-hand wall and into the 8. It's extremely difficult. You need to be extremely precise. I'd say it's easier to make the 5-7 or the 5-10. Maybe even some other more pretty difficult spares over that.
2-4-6, 3-4-6.
They're all.
I think are easier. Yeah, it's a tough one.
So
when you throw that first ball to leave it, you're hoping that some wood's going to take out that back pin, that sleeper, and when it doesn't, you're probably looking at an open frame. So
just to belabor my point from earlier, what Brian just described in his experience yesterday, seemingly is the story of many of the bowlers in this tournament. I'm going to revert back to my theory. I mean, it's still fair. Everyone had the same conditions, so the score's down. Oh well, the scores are down.
I just overheard off camera John D'Antonis threw a strike, and Brian Santuccio Weaver said, 12th one-bagger of the day. And that kind of says a lot there, right? Kind of the implication is no doubles or triples.
The fact that he's got 12, though, is
right. Well, that's kind of John D'Antonis' MO, yeah.
I'm starting to feel selfish. I had 2 triples and 3 doubles today, and I'm like, I stunk.
Should sell those.
I actually told John Blaze I would sell him my last game for $150. He said that doesn't sound legal.
Who said it was legal, right? I mean.
All right, Benetti stepping up here for his sixth frame.
Let's get real. He's in a must-strike situation almost every box right now.
Yeah.
He needs to string a few to get back in the conversation.
Really, the race we should be tracking is the B division.
Benetti
and Kelly are neck and neck. Kelly is 22 pins behind.
But he's gained 5 pins so far this game through 5 frames. So it's really, they're 2 marks apart. Anthony's got a 2-mark lead on Stacy for the B division.
All right. Wide right there, but makeable 3-pinner for Benetti.
He thought he chopped off 2, but he didn't. It's always pleasant when you look up and see that.
Did not look good on that ball.
A little ragged.
His follow-through is pretty subtle, but I think it was lacking on all of those balls there. I don't know. Eric's kind of our resident coach. So, Eric, you'll have to keep a closer look on Anthony Benetti and see if I've picked up on anything or if I'm just seeing things.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, he seems like he's been pretty mechanically sound. I got to say I'm a fan of that little follow-through he's got. It's so short and simple, but, give it a nice push and put your hand in front of your eyes. There's something to be said for simplicity in this game. I haven't picked up on a lot of things he's doing that wrong because a lot of the balls are going where they're supposed to go, but he does have a little bit of a tendency, I think, to either carry his weight, kind of. Especially, I think a lot of bowlers do this when they're bowling well and they're really trying to keep bowling well. You start sort of adjusting your head, the alignment over your arm and your hand a little bit, and you are now shifting your weight and your balance. And in effort to sort of align your head with your arm, you can throw your balance out of whack. And I see a little out of that out of him every now and then, but for the most part, he's been good.
All right, we're going to change our main camera feed here to make sure we're tracking the big showdown between Anthony Benetti and Stacy Kelly here. Stacy Kelly up now in the cap. And he's wide left for 4. He's got 98 through 7. We're tracking his score here in the left-hand side of your screen. Chops through for 4 more.
And right before Stacy started this frame, on the lane to his right, in the yellow shirt, saw Scott Wolgamuth. I believe he converted a 6-pin spare. 2-time winner and 12-game record holder, world record holder, 12-game score of 2,066.
He'd be in pretty good shape today.
That's amazing. That's what, 259? 59 pins ahead of Chris Kruger.
That's 2 full games.
Game and a half at that pace ahead of Chris. And I believe the year that Scott won, there might have been 1 or 2 other bowlers that shot 1,900 and didn't have a sniff of the title.
But, that could have been one of those years where the strikes were plentiful. And
it had to be.
What were his blocks? Were both blocks over 1,000 or?
Oh, Miles, that's right. Miles Kincannon had 1926 and lost by 140 pins.
That's awful.
1928, I'm sorry. And Bruce Sylvester was third with 1886.
Wow. All three of those scores would be running away with this tournament this year.
That was in 1993.
All right, Benetti up here on your main screen. Looking to rebound after 2 subpar frames. And chops to the right for 2.
Brian, both of these bowlers, as I had talked about before, both of these bowlers are now in danger of dropping off of our main leaderboard. And we will be completely focusing on the B division because they won't even be a current bowler in the top 12.
Yeah, that ball right there, guys, out of Anthony was exactly what I'm talking about. You can see him leaning over to the left, and like when he does his slide, he slides with his right foot, and then if it's just, see, he was on top of his leg there. If it slides out to the right, he's leaned his shoulder over, and he's probably just trying to align his head and his arm. That's costly to balance, and balance is everything.
Eric still available for hire? Because I could use a coach.
So as far as the B division goes, Anthony and Stacy are struggling these last few frames, which still means that Benetti has a 2-mark lead. Stacy has gained 6 pins through 7 frames on him this game. So 22 minus 6 is 16. 16 pins for Anthony over Stacy.
Now, speaking of coaching, Eric, I had the pleasure of bowling with young Kristen Kaczewski. And early on in the first game, I just said to her, I was half joking, but as it turns out, it was a mantra for the tournament. I said, just don't miss. And from that point on, every time she had a spare break, I would say, don't miss. And she wanted me to.
Oh, yeah.
She asked me to.
She asked you to say it.
So I got a little uncomfortable because other people around me thought I was kind of being a jerk because somebody would leave a spare and I go, hey, don't miss. But
those
worked.
are words of wisdom.
It's simple advice.
You didn't miss.
Well,
you'd probably have a really great score.
That's a bit of sports psychology there.
Well,
right. A lot of any sports psychologist will tell you that you kind of need a mantra to go back to when you're in competition, whether it be the same thing every single game or it changes game to game based on what in particular you want to focus on, but a short 2 to 3 word phrase that just kind of gets you focused and in the right mindset to complete the task that you need to complete.
And to follow that up, this morning as we started our second block, through the first 16 frames, I had kind of forgotten about it. It was kind of a joke. She said to me at the 17th frame, she goes, could you tell me not to miss? And I said, okay, if you know. And it was simple, but.
Yeah. I think Stacy went back to his mantra on that one. We got a strike out of him in his 9th frame.
Bombs away.
Yeah.
That's his mantra.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny that's what was working for Kristen, because on the last broadcast we were talking a little bit about that, about trying to think positive things instead of negative things. But, hey, if that worked for her, whatever it takes.
Well,
whatever
I promise
it takes.
you I would not have done that if I hadn't been asked.
Right.
Because I'd be a jerk, I guess.
Well, even if you were saying that to yourself, don't miss, don't miss, don't miss.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that's what I want going through my head when I'm shooting a single. I think I wanted to be, all right, let's just get the ball out, follow through.
A sports psychologist would say, right, that your mantra needs to be positive.
Right.
But it's just playing off something similar there, right, in what you were doing with her, Pat. Benetti off the side here. Oh, he gets one more. I don't know if that makes it more or less difficult. The 135?
I guess I could add 2 words to Anthony right now from my sports psychologist. Don't miss the pocket.
Right. Yeah, he was well off there.
Or maybe Eric, what would you say his mantra should be here? Something about his follow through, his balance.
I would say follow through is always a good thing to emphasize. A really good follow through can correct a lot of things in the middle of an off balance problem or a range of other issues. Follow through. Nice pendulum, get through it at the bottom. Those types of things are
so, Eric,
things to go back to.
Do you think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy if you focus on your follow-through that the rest of it is natural?
It's a good point, Pat. I think a lot of times, things start falling in place when you get 2-3 consecutive good frames. things can heal themselves a little bit when you stop worrying about doing things wrong. To Jim's point, and follow through is one of those things I think that can get you there. Just focus on that and clear out the rest of the garbage, and throw a couple good frames.
Well, hold the phones, guys. Look who's back on our Open Division leaderboard. That is Dan Richmond. He just completed a 157 game. So he's back up there, 145 or 141.5.
And just simply needs to throw a 251 to take over the lead.
Not mathematically eliminated yet.
But close.
Hey, where is he, boys and girls?
so
what lanes is he on?
19 and 20.
All right. So he doesn't want spares over there.
And perhaps all of those strikes that we haven't seen this weekend have been waiting
Maybe they're going
to
to come
out.
all at once. It'd be a fantastic finish.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be something. Stacy Kelly now getting ready to approach the lane in the cap there.
If Stacy throws a strike here, he's going to assume the B division lead.
I don't think there's been a year in my recent memory, the last 4 or 5 years, with Stacy Kelly competing in this tournament, and he's a fantastic bowler. But he's in the B division, and he is a contender every single year, and sometimes for the Open division as well. You see him on the leaderboard this year, but man, he is so strong in this tournament every year.
As a young man, he was an excellent baseball pitcher, and ended up having some surgical work, which ended his professional opportunities. But he was a major league prospect as a high schooler.
Yeah, he was drafted by the Oakland A's in the 50-something round in, I believe, 1994.
Huge make there for Stacy. Big spare.
We talked about him being down 2 marks to Anthony. Well, there's 2 marks. So depending on what his fill is, might have caught Anthony, and also the outcome of Anthony's last 2 frames. Anthony's a frame or 2 behind him in this
Clearly
game.
not enough to challenge for the Open, but at this point, he's focused on one thing, I think. Or maybe not. He might not even be focused on that at all. We're probably the only ones that know about that right now.
I don't know what he's thinking. I don't want to know what he's thinking. How about that?
I'm thinking about dinner.
I'm ready.
And Chris Kruger probably is as well, right?
Yep.
Maybe keep those reservations at that nice
lobster.
fancy restaurant.
Says he's breathing a little bit easier. He just wants to find out what Anthony's 11th game is, because he already knew. He did the math. He said, he needs 369 his last 2.
Yeah.
So as long as I don't tell him.
Anthony's going to need slightly less than 251.
Well, yeah. Well, if Anthony strikes out, he'll have 161, which means he'll need about 200, 210 his last game.
Stacy with a 9-drop and a big game.
147 for Stacy Kelly. So he's moving up the leaderboard slightly. He might jump up to 7th, and he might just jump over Benetti as well. But we'll see. Benetti still has 2 frames left in his 11th game. So what would you guys rather be right now? Would you rather be Chris Kruger at home, kind of waiting it out, or would you rather be somebody like Anthony Benetti, who's up there, with the shot, the ball's in your hands?
If I want to win,
yeah,
Chris Kruger all day.
But let's say if I don't know, Benetti needs a lot to catch up, but let's say he only needed 160, 170 in that range. Would you rather be Chris Kruger, or would you rather be Benetti with the ball in your hands?
I got it simple. I'd rather be Anthony Benetti than anyone else but Chris Kruger. How's that? He's the only one that has a shot.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't know. The math is making that question, a little straightforward. Even a 160, I'd rather be the guy sitting in the clubhouse sipping on a drink. But make that a 140.
Well,
140, 145.
Make with an opportunity to go past him and then put up, another 20 pins. Somebody else.
How about this? How about the previous shift?
Yeah.
Would you rather have been John Blaze or Chris Kruger?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, and I think you only know the answer to that question if you're out there and bowling and dealing with the conditions. If you're struggling to get your 140s, you're working really hard. Man, you got to be looking at Chris Kruger and saying,
Right.
I'd love to be where he is.
Because I was bowling and not doing this part, I didn't get to see the frame-to-frame action. But don't you think, I mean, in John Blaze's mind, didn't he think he had a chance to win this tournament? Do you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And he did. He did. A little more, I think a little more cooperation on some frames, and we would have been biting our nails in the last couple of boxes. He bowled tremendously. I mean, 8-9 times a game on the head pin, really in the pocket. His ball was working, and we did not see him miss much. I mean,
No.
you know.
And it was done relatively quietly. I was bowling a couple lanes over, and there wasn't a lot of noise coming
I
in.
think it's just the range of the scores in on his sheet. There was nothing over 162.
Yeah.
So that tends to be a quiet set. But it's easier to have the high end score. It's really hard to keep a floor to your scores the way that he did.
Right.
All right, let's do as Stacy Kelly steps up here to begin his 12th and final game. Sitting at 1564. Making a run at the B division. Good start.
Well, if you're going to go for a 250, you got to start with a strike.
And he's had big games. He's had multiple 200 games.
He only needs a 244.
Which would be, I think, the highest game ever in the Eastern, right? Didn't we talk about
We
that?
had a
in the
big
previous
score
broadcast?
on 1 and 2 from
240, I believe.
It was
239, 241, going through
Who
the book
was it?
here.
it was down on 1 and 2, and I can't remember who it was. It wasn't Eric Pellet, was it? Did Eric have a big?
Oh no, this was a long time ago.
241.
Pat.
I'll play the game with you, Pat.
Okay, so
It was 241, and it was in 1981.
well,
Those at home, please don't shout out the answer
Yeah,
from the
'cause
earlier
I-
broadcast.
don't give me any ESP either.
we did just talk about this.
Right.
Yeah.
Was
Was
it
it
one
was
of our
it?
first
It couldn't have been
episodes
Scott
of this
Wogemuth.
year? What's that?
It wasn't. It wasn't Wogemuth. That wasn't the Wogemuth year. Was
No,
it?
no. 1981.
241. I'm gonna go with multiple year winners. Dennis Cabral.
Never won the Eastern, this person. Never won the Eastern.
No kidding. He seemed like he was destined to win in this tournament.
He had the record. Another hint. I believe it was a record, as far as we know, as far as most consecutive years bowled in the Eastern.
It's not my man. It is John.
No, John who?
No, what's his name?
No.
Oh no. Oh,
I think I know. Yeah, I think
Oh,
you know
I
who
can-
it is. You just have to come up with
wait,
the name.
wait. Hang on. Lou. It's Lou.
There it
It's
is.
Lou. Sweet Lou Sarkeesian.
That's him.
Oh my. Lou had a 241.
That's what the
Oh,
book
my
says.
God.
I'm sure he did.
That's awesome.
All right, speaking of awesome games, Eric, you've got a quick update on Will Rigby for us. If you've been watching at home, you've been seeing some pretty good bowling.
Actually, I missed Will. I could go check on him. What I saw was Walt Brooks
Oh,
closing
I'm
out
sorry.
his game on 1 and 2. He had 150 plus. 160 plus with a ball to go on that in the 10th frame. I think he's about 170. I know he's
168.
168. He's pretty far out of the conversation for the 1807, but
It puts him back on our board.
there he goes. Don't count that guy out. He's always fighting.
He only
Always
needs
fighting for something.
He only needs a 232. He doesn't have to break Lou's record. Only needs a 232. Slap me. Somebody hit me. Uh-oh.
There's that ball I'm a little worried about. Anthony throwing too many times where he's slips, his sliding leg slips out from underneath him, but he got a very good fortune on that one and some mixing action. It's a good way to set up the 10th frame.
It was a much-needed strike for Anthony. He needs at least a 125 to maintain his at least tie for the lead. That strike puts him in position to at least get to that and perhaps go by it.
All right, so with the bowlers who've completed their 11 games so far, we've still got 3 bowlers in our top 12. Walt Brooks, Stacy Kelly, and Dan Richmond hanging on in 12th spot. Just to kind of catch you up on what happened around the lanes in game 11, Dan Richmond had 157, Walt Brooks 168. We were tracking Roy Kaczewski earlier, 120 in game 11. He's fallen off the pace, 15-13 through 11, a 137.5 average. Stacy Kelly, remember, had 147. And we're still waiting on a report from Will Rigby. Anthony Benetti still waiting to wrap up his 11th game as well. But, we went from having 2 bowlers on the top 12 leaderboard to now at least 4. So things in that, 7th to 20th spot are pretty fluid at the moment.
Yeah, because
very, very fluid.
Because Benetti, Brooks, Kelly, and Richmond are all within 20 pins of each other.
And Will Rigby pushing the button on his game. It's 125 for game 11.
No, that'll
brings him down to 139.36 average, 15-33 through 11 games. All right, again, bowlers don't have to slide down or change lanes at all here. Going into their 12th game, the Eastern Classic, you get to stay on the same lane for the last 2 games. Again, if you're following along at home, we got Walt Brooks in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen on lanes 1 and 2. Bottom right-hand corner of your screen, we've got Dan Richmond, along with Colby D'Antonis, who we just saw throw a strike there. And in the bottom middle, we've got Will Rigby to the right and Stacy Kelly to the left. Walt Brooks starts his 12th game with a chop for 2, as we see on our main feed, where we turn our attention now. Anthony Benetti on a strike in the 9th, looking to double up and kind of salvage this game.
Anthony's taking an extra second there. Looks
right.
like it was worth it.
It was definitely worth it. Good. That's one of those balls we've been talking about right there. That's, you know what? Any given day, any given play, any lane, any house, that could have been a double.
Yeah, that was definitely right in the pocket. We were talking earlier about, I don't think we've witnessed that 5-pin get carried one time yet. Maybe that's another. Nope.
Just enough there.
Unless you hit it with a ball, that is.
You mean with the mix?
Yeah, with the mix on the first ball, we haven't seen the 5-pin get carried. We're not watching everything, but from what we've seen, it hasn't gone. So maybe that's another one of those genres of strikes, that we see a lot. That's just not here this weekend.
So, which leads me to think, as we're going to watch Anthony try to load this spare, and he chopped off the side for 2. So, very frustrating there, yeah. But what I was going to say, Eric, was that it's almost like you're forced to be super heavy in the pocket, which now makes you flirt with the rip.
Yeah, nobody likes to strategize,
right?
Being tight in the pocket like that.
All right, so that brings Anthony Benetti to 1572 through 11, currently sitting in 7th place based on our average projections. He needs to keep that average, so he needs to shoot a 143 really, to maintain that pace.
And boy, Brian, how exciting would this be? We have 4 bowlers on this shift within 18 pins of each other. However, they're they're really far down the list, you know?
Well, I guess that improves the chances, albeit very small, of one of them popping a big game, right? We have 4 opportunities for someone to have a career game and make a hell of a finish to this
amazing run
tournament.
to the 2020 Eastern Finals Classic victory.
But those strikes have to come out of the shadows here and present themselves very quickly.
They are not coming from Dan Richmond. Unfortunately, he's got 52 through 5. So he is certainly mathematically out of contention. Even really out of contention, we think, for any movement up the leaderboard. Stacy Kelly, we saw a couple moments ago, chop for 2. Remember, he's in the bottom middle screen. He's at 41 through 3, so he's still got plenty of room, but not the ideal start, but not the worst either. Then we have Anthony Benetti.
Anthony is 8 pins ahead of Stacy for the B division lead. Gave up half of his lead in the 11th game. So just 1 mark separates those 2.
And Walt Brooks stepping up on lane 1. Follow him in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. He's the one getting up on the lanes right now. He has 10 through 1. Off the head pin again, but gets a good break. He'll be shooting at 2.
And some bowlers have almost finished their tournament. Some bowlers, like Dan Richmond, only have 5 frames to go. Everyone else just about starting or starting their 12th and final game, last game of the tournament.
So we came into today with only 5 900 blocks, right? Bowlers bowl 6 games. 900 would be a 150 average. Only 5 of those so far. We had some bowlers pretty close in the high 800s, but bellwether of how things are going is 900 or more. Only 5 heading into today. In the previous episode, no one hit 900. Even John Blaze did not get there. And I don't think we really have anyone headed in that direction right now on this shift.
Yeah.
So unless something pretty out of the ordinary happens.
Yeah, it's within reach for a few bowlers, but I think at best here we're talking about another 1, so 6, maybe 7 total 900s, way off the, what we saw last year. I feel like it would be. I mean, obviously we talk about this 150 mark. We talk about that being the mark to win the tournament. I think it would be malpractice somewhat of us to just not mention that, the scores that you do see ranging from, 12th position, Dan Richmond at 141.5 average, all the way up to Chris Kruger, 150.6. This is fantastic bowling. It's just not typically Eastern tournament winning bowling. Nobody walks in off the street and averages anything close to the numbers you're seeing here. These guys bowled well. It's just clearly there's something weighing down the scores a little bit this year, and much to our surprise. So, we're talking about this a lot, but, I don't want anybody to, look to think that this isn't really great bowling. These are great bowlers on this list and great scores.
We'll have to see what happens next year, see if this is just a blip on the map or a sign of a trend. Who knows? But
yeah, some more evidence here. We were talking about scoring. Last year, the winning score we said was 1868, 1842 a second, 1812 third. Obviously, no one's getting there in the open division this year, but Class B, in that B division there, the winning score was 1711. That was Tom Osborne. That's a 142 average. Where are we right now in the B division? 142. In the C division, last year. The winning score was our own Pat Rufo. He's reminded us of that a couple of times today.
No, I don't. No.
Do you remember your score last year, Pat?
I don't think I made 17. I think I was like 1680 something.
Close, 1673.
Yeah.
Look where our C division leader is right now in the clubhouse, 1689. So maybe at the very, very top of the tournament, scores are down a little bit, but I think, like we just saw in the B and C division, scores are relatively level in comparison to past years.
So I think that's a piece of evidence towards it not being just overall scoring decline, but maybe just an off year for the top bowlers.
All right, we got two of our bowlers we're tracking now. Up at the same time, Anthony Benetti on the main feed, Stacy Kelly in the cap in the middle bottom feed.
Anthony was really frustrated on that, the way that last game ended. Important ball to bounce back here, start fresh.
What's that, Eric? What did you say you had to do?
Well, he's is he the one with the earpiece in? Is he listening to what we're saying, or maybe they're passing it around?
I
out
have
there?
no idea, but you just talked him into that bomb. That was 10 in the pit almost.
I think he talked himself into it.
Perhaps.
A nice break in between the two games.
Yep.
Between 11 and 12, and it was a good choice.
And to thank you. To be honest,
saw that on the secondary. On the secondary camera there, Stacy Kelly just made the 5-7-8 for a spare, clean.
What I was going to say about that ball that he threw at the end of that game is very uncharacteristic from what we've been seeing all day.
Yeah, that's right. And he dedicated that strike to you. I don't know if the mics picked it up. But
Yeah, well, glad to hear that. But I hope he dedicates the next 7 in a row to me, too, because that'll make things really exciting.
yeah, we got
Billy
defending
Thomas,
champion there.
our defending champion, giving us the knuckle sandwich there on camera. Yeah, saw that.
So we were just talking about 900 sets to follow up on that. Person with the best shot is Anthony Benetti, 754 through his 5 games today. So he needs that 146, which is certainly doable, right, to make it 6 900s. Stacy Kelly's at 720 for 5 games. So he's the next closest. So pretty unlikely we have more than 6 900 sets in this tournament this year.
We've had 6 in the same block. I mean,
oh, yeah, in past years,
easily.
absolutely. All right, quick whip around the lanes here. Dan Richmond, bottom right corner on lanes 19 and 20. He's got 82 through 7. He's on a spare and up on the lanes now. But he chops through the middle for 3. So that'll put him at 85 through 7. And he goes through again, so things are not looking up for him.
On the main camera, Brian Santuccio Weaver had struck in the first, was very excited about that, and not excited about the 7-10 that he's left here in the second.
and Brian and Jim and Eric, usually at this point in the tournament, game 12, box 4, box 3, this place is hopping, buzzing, noise. What do you hear today?
Very subdued.
Very, very quiet. Just like the scores right now.
Well, Anthony's not yet mathematically eliminated, right?
Hey, I'm
needs a
hoping he
bit.
dedicates the entire 250 game to me.
What have you done to deserve that, Pat? I'm just curious.
Oh, Anthony and I bowled together on in the Duckpin TV tournament that we had in Rhode Island. I bowled with Anthony, and him and I developed a pretty good relationship, and so I've never bowled with him on any other team, but Anthony, Rufo, Benetti. Get
Oh, how you doing?
Italian thing there,
Yeah.
I knew it was something like that.
Yeah, it's an Italian thing.
It's like you two could be in The Irishman.
Yeah, well, we could.
Yeah, St. Patrick's Day is coming up.
Anthony.
Took that extra second again, guys. That didn't work out for him this time. 6 load.
3 gets you 4 here. Hit that 1-3 pocket, drive the ball through there just like you're making a 3-pinner, and you should be able to pick up that 5-pin easily. Unfortunately, he's too heavy on the head pin.
Walt Brooks in the bottom left corner. I think he was shooting the 4-8 maybe. Took it off the wall and almost had it.
It's another thing that's been missing seemingly from this tournament. In past years, we've seen a lot of conversions of, difficult spares consistently, and even some of the splits we've been seeing, there's not been a high percentage rate of conversions on the difficult spares.
Well, I was just about you took the opposite of those words right out of my mouth, because Stacy Kelly had made the 5-7-8 last frame. He just made the 5-7 clean. So in back-to-back frames, he's made 2 splits.
And that's what you get for not paying attention, like you.
Well, he was on one of the secondary cameras, but he's battling for the B division. He is he's locked in.
He's sure putting up a heck of a fight. Down 8 pins going into the final game.
The lanes aren't cooperating, but he doesn't care.
No, Stacy doesn't care. Stacy is a very focused bowler.
All right. Scott Wogemuth on the lower middle screen in the yellow with striped shirt. John D'Antonis on the main screen.
Guys, I've been in and out of the booth a little bit today, so I don't know. Did we talk about John's shirt?
I
was surprised.
I can't believe you just said that.
Are we?
Usually it's like bright orange, bright yellow, bright green, bright.
Actually, we joked earlier, Pat. Pat's.
Oh, I
no
was
camera
trying to
on
do
Pat.
my best John D'Antonis thing.
Yeah, Pat's wearing a nice bright pink shirt.
Yeah.
We thought that maybe he lended it to you. Maybe that's why he's not wearing it. I mean, it's a nice shirt, Pat.
I appreciate that. I did wear it thinking of John D'Antonis, to be honest.
I don't know how much we talked about Colby D'Antonis. This is his inaugural year in this tournament. Had a pretty decent showing on that first shift, and man, what a season this guy has had. I believe his first adult season, on Pro Tours. He's got a Pop Whitten win.
Yeah, he's a young bowler, and he's got a
really
world ahead of him.
And I caught a little bit of banter back and forth between Colby and his father John, and it is really, really funny. These guys have like identical senses of humor. It doesn't surprise you, right?
Like father, like son.
Like
are you
father,
saying?
like son, and they are just like so lighthearted, making jokes at one another's expense, and like
very funny.
Don't take anything too personally. What a relationship those two guys have, and two fantastic bowlers. I
Yep.
mean, what else can you say?
See, Anthony off the side there for 2 on his first ball, and now trying to clean up for 10. Stacy Kelly's starting to put a move on, and essentially has taken the lead in the B division through 4 boxes.
hear some conversations in the background. People talking about the B division. 2-horse race between Anthony Benetti and Stacy Kelly.
And they both have to be very careful because Tom Shaw's sitting there at 1689. I mean,
Right.
it would be a disastrous finish for Stacy Kelly if he weren't to get to 116 at this point. But I mean, I'm sorry, 126. But Benetti's not there yet.
I think I've taken a good look over at Dan Richmond on the lanes instead of on the monitors like 3 times, and every time I've done it, he's been looking at a ripped head pin, some sort of a leave from going through the middle.
He's had a beyond frustrating afternoon for sure. And he came in with a really positive attitude. He was ready for this.
He did. He talked yesterday about leaving wood behind. He left pin standing at the end of his frame, and was a little disappointed in himself for that. But like everybody else who was in the same neighborhood with this score, still sort of positive about having a chance going into today.
Yeah, his 6 games today, 783.
Obviously did not materialize for him.
So I think you'll recognize the gentleman in the lower middle camera on the left-hand side there. It's Walt Latasha finishing up his frame, and then we'll see Stacy Kelly to his left.
I like that shirt Walt is wearing.
Is that a company product, Eric?
Yep.
And then Anthony Benetti up the middle for 4. Big struggle right now for Anthony.
Looks like Stacy was the recipient of another split. I'm sorry. Looks like it's maybe it's just the 5-pin. Looks like just the 5-pin.
And
wow.
he did miss the 5-pin.
It was apparently not difficult enough.
Yeah, he only makes very difficult spares.
Yeah. He was unchallenged. All right, he's gonna have to let that one go.
That's got to be frustrating. Make 2 splits and then you finally get an easy one and blow by it.
All right, but with the race between Benetti and Kelly, Kelly's leading right now. He's got 87 through 6. He's going at a better clip than Benetti, who's at 33 through 3. We just saw a little bit of movement in the leaderboard here. Look who just jumped up into 7th.
That had to be a huge game.
Some of you, I'm sure, were watching Colby D'Antonis in the bottom right of your screen. Finished with a 468 his last 3 games, 141, 161, 166 for a 17-16 total, 854 for his 6 games today.
And only 3 bowlers out there who might be able to get past him on the final standings here. I mean, that was a fantastic finish to assure himself a top 10, maybe even a top 7 finish here.
And depending on how Walt finishes his last game, he might be able to jump up in the 6th. So as Scott Wogelmuth finishes up this frame here, we'll see Stacy Kelly. There he is on your screen. So I think can we officially call this for Chris Kruger? Mathematicians?
It's over.
It's over?
It's over.
It's been over.
Stacy can only go 207. Benetti is
well, Benetti could go
222 is not
222. And 222 would not be enough.
Kelly in there gets the pin to kick.
Another single pin for Kelly to shoot at. He box for box. Kelly right now has taken a 9-pin lead through 4. He has he's a bit ahead of Benetti's pace right now. So, but through 4 frames each, Kelly has made up 8 and 9 more.
So Chris Kruger unofficially the winner of the tournament. already.
Kelly misses another single. Unofficial for sure. Kruger is going to be on our 2021 brochure as the defending champion.
Unofficial, but he has my permission to open a bottle of champagne and start celebrating.
Get some. What do they do down there? Soft shell crabs. What's the big deal down there? They gonna go crab fest. So this will be the first time in 10 years, Jim, for a first weekend leader to hang on, if you will.
Walt Brooks in 2010 was the last to win from the first weekend, or really from any other shift than shift 5, I believe.
It's certainly been a while. It's been a while. Race now is for the B division and some of the
Just
lower spots on
jostling
the open
for
division
spots in
board.
the top 12, yeah.
And it's just going to be a few minutes longer that Billy Thomas can call himself the defending champion. There he is on lane 16 in the Ace Ventura t-shirt.
There's this really great picture of Billy on the brochure or the booklet this year. It's like a picture from the front of him as he's delivering the ball. You can see him sort of like following through. It's the stance that, you know, the way you want to look when you're done delivering the ball. You know, you could tell he followed through the ball really well on that particular ball that the picture was taken. And you know, he's just a fantastic bowler.
It's hard to mimic his approach, though.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, clearly this weekend wasn't his it wasn't his year this year, but you know, great that he got himself an Eastern championship. He's been a good great champion to hold the title for a year. He'll be passing the torch on to Chris Kruger,
A fellow Southerner.
Yep.
So we had a little run of Rhode Island, and now it's back down south.
Brian Varner on your screen there in the white, converting a 4-pin split. Bowls out of Holiday Lanes in Manchester, Connecticut.
So it'll actually be the third consecutive year with a Southern bowler, Maryland bowler, winning the Eastern Classic. John D'Antonis, Billy Thomas, and now unofficially Chris Kruger. I'm fairly certain, Jim, we're going to see that D'Antonis name up on that leaderboard again, but it may not be John.
Well,
or it may be both.
They've got two chances
Yes,
now going
indeed.
forward. Colby had a very good showing this first year at the Eastern. I'm sure, like you said, we'll see it many more times on the
I'm going to
leaderboard.
retract that immediately and say it could be both.
And
We
this
could
might,
see-
could motivate John to step up his game going forward too.
Well, we could see that father-son battle. That would be
Right.
classic. John doesn't look like he's ready to give it up quite yet, for sure.
I've been following the Pop Witten scores, and they seem to be right around each other during the qualifying stage. That I'm sure it's competitive between the two. I don't know if there's any side bets.
Yeah. With both of their characters and their attitudes, I would imagine it's fun competition.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot of joking around out of both of them, but they both are they're very humble guys. You can tell Colby's been raised with a really good attitude. They're great bowlers, but they're not out here telling people.
No, their mannerisms
about
even
how-
are almost exactly alike. So you see Anthony Benetti picking up a spare in the 6th frame. Stacy Kelly missed a single in the 6th frame, so Anthony's got a little bit of work to do, but it's still neck and neck for that B division.
Making some corrections to Stacy Kelly's score. Looks like we were a couple of frames behind on it. But looks like Stacy might have finished with a 148. Getting final confirmation on that score from
Stacy Kelly is
Chris
done with his
Scannell.
tournament.
Yeah, it looks like 148. I'm just waiting for final confirm.
So that's gonna bump his average up just a tad, not probably by more than a fraction of a pin, but it might be enough.
Well, but it'll also make sure that he is ahead of Tom Shaw for the B division.
Absolutely,
right?
it's now between Stacy and Anthony for sure.
I'm only a couple feet closer than you, Jim, but I see 148 too.
Okay.
So we don't need to do a lot of difficult math. Anthony Benetti is going to need a 141 to hang on to his B division title. Anything under 141, Stacy Kelly is going to be the 2020 B division winner. Tom Shaw has the C division locked up by over 100 pins. Chris Kruger has the open division locked up. Probably had that locked up for the better part of the last hour. So Anthony Benetti's one above his box through 5 and in search of 141. He has a mark in the 6th. He is in pretty much make it or break it right now. Make or break mode. He's going to have to pretty much mark out pretty close to it.
Yeah, this ball's got to be in the pocket.
Can't afford any loads under 8. And he's got to convert any spare leaves and hopefully catch a break, maybe get a strike or two. Perhaps a double.
Yeah,
Who knows?
You can kind of see from his posture and the amount of time he's taken. He knows it's on the line. He's going to keep fighting for it.
And fight he did.
And he did, and that's actually the first time we've seen
We
that
saw the 5-pin
go
carry,
down.
yeah.
Game on in the B division.
Yeah, it's nothing's been decided yet.
So depending on how this pans out in the B division, if Stacy wins, he can look at this spare strike finish in the 10th. If he loses, he can look at the singles that he missed in the 8th and 9th.
Right.
after converting 2 splits in a row.
I hear what you're saying, Jim, but I mean, he threw a 148. He's not going to. I mean, you got to look at the overall. I'd be okay with that finishing the tournament. But no matter what, if you do give it up by a pin or here or there, you're going to focus on that instead of. Most people do. It's unfortunate, but most people do.
All right, we're trying to make some accommodations here technology-wise to finish up our broadcast.
At this point, there's not a lot of bowlers left. We are awaiting Anthony Benetti's next box. He has 3 frames to go. At this point, he's really the only bowler of interest for the rest of the shift. If he happens to throw a strike on this next ball, we're going to have a pretty close finish for that B division.
But in the meanwhile, let's bring in via FaceTime our 2020 Eastern Classic champion, Chris Kruger. Congratulations, Chris. Can you hear us? Oh, we have him on the screen, and we're trying to make audio contact. It doesn't look like he can see us, but we're trying to see if we can get the satellite to work here, the Duckpin TV satellite truck outside.
Yeah, we got to go get the engineers. Chris, can you hear us? That would be a no.
Looks to be in good spirits.
Yeah,
Saw him smiling before.
Looks pensive.
Yes, just waiting for someone to talk to him.
And as we await Chris Kruger, the connection for Chris, Anthony Benetti is going to step onto the lane on 15 for his 8th box of this game and his 118th box of the tournament. He is on a strike.
Guys, while we're working on that feed from Chris, looking over at Will Rigby, who just wrapped up his 12 games. That last game is in the 180s, maybe 190s. I mean, he's going to make a pretty good jump on that. I don't know if it gets him to the leaderboard, but I think 185, 186 is where he ended up.
Wow. Well, it's Will has it's not surprising.
Yeah, I mean, at a moment's notice, he could have a 170, 180 game.
And here's Benetti now. That's the last thing he wanted to see right there.
Yeah, it was a really nice ball.
It's imperative that he's on 3 and then 2. He's put himself in a position where he's going to have to mark out.
Oh,
and that's going to
was really close to actually sliding that over and converting it. Instead of getting 5, he gets 1. It's unfortunate.
So
he'll need a double.
Yeah, he's only 15 above his box. He needs to get to 41.
I did get confirmation. Will Rigby 185 the last game.
Very nice game for Will. So Anthony Benetti is in search of a double. It can happen either in the 9th and 10th, or he can throw it in the 10th box. Still awaiting confirmation that we actually have Chris Kruger with us.
This handsome devil on your screen we've been watching all afternoon. This is Brian Varner. He's a longtime bowler in the state. He's bowled most of his career as either as a youth bowler or as an adult bowler out of Holiday Lanes in Manchester, Connecticut. Been having a really good year. I think this is his 2nd year in a row bowling the Eastern. And we haven't talked about him much, but I've seen him throw a lot of good balls. This guy's a high caliber shooter himself.
So it's strike time for Anthony Benetti, you just mentioned before, for the B division lead. And I think we might be ready to talk to the champ, Chris Kruger. We're working on the technical side of things. Can you hear us, Chris?
I can hear
Yes,
you. It's
all
just
right.
really low. I
think
turned the
we
volume
might,
up
now
on the
we
phone.
need to be able to hear him.
Can
But
you hear me?
Chris Kruger, 2020
Can you hear me?
Eastern Classic champion.
Can you guys
Can
hear
you
me?
hear us, Chris?
I can hear you, but it's really low.
All right. So what are your thoughts? I know I don't know what you thought the odds were of you winning at the beginning of the day versus the end of the day. Take us through your day today.
Man, my day today was it was definitely a rough and nervous day all day. I mean, I paced around the house. I was up and down. I was sitting there on the couch and literally just trying not to worry about it. But it was definitely a whirlwind of emotions all day. That's for sure.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you felt you bowled during the first weekend of the tournament?
I felt I bowled pretty well on Saturday. It seemed the strikes seemed to come on Saturday. Sunday I only had 4 strikes. I didn't have any doubles. I missed quite a few spares towards the end, which I thought was going to hurt me. But I mean, overall, I was happy with how I bowled, considering I hadn't picked up a ball in almost 10 days.
Yeah, so Chris, I mean, we were here. We witnessed your second shift last week, and we were aware from your conversations that the strikes were really flying in your first block, but the second block they just weren't coming. But you struggled through, and you converted a lot of spares and hung in there. And you know what? That was the theme for the rest of the tournament, because everybody faced the same struggles with strikes going forward. So. Congratulations to you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, I know that there was a couple times where I'd miss 2 singles, but then I'd come back the next box and leave like the 5, 6, 9, 10 and make that. It was funny how the way things were working, and when things are going good for you, they're going good. I mean, there's not much you can really change about it. I was really happy with the way I shot my singles, especially the 10 pin, because I struggle with the 10 pin.
Yeah, Chris, this is Eric Latasha. I just want to start by saying congratulations. It's really a phenomenal accomplishment, great thing to put on your resume. I'm trying to think of some questions here for you. I didn't get a chance to see your scores firsthand, but man, I look at the scoreboard, and one thing that sticks out is obviously a 947 on day 1, but then day 2, whatever was happening, there was no breakdown game where you just kind of really could have sacrificed everything. I mean, you kept it together on day 2. Was there any moments, I guess, where you were worried about giving it away on the second day, or did you still feel like you left it all out there?
Yeah, well, the second day, I mean, I started. Sorry about the kids in the background, but I started off the second day, and I mean, it was a 10. The ball was really good to start the day, first strike, and I was like, man, this is going to be a great day. And then I seemed to not be able to get the strikes to fall, but going into like the third game, I started to, press a little bit myself, and but it seemed to be, I was able to, to fight through that. And, in the past, I've always had issues with trying to keep, I mean, it's a mental game. So you try to keep your head in there. And that was the one thing for me, was I was trying to get as much wood as I could and just do my best and just know that, whatever I put out there was the best that I could.
So, Chris, once again, this is Pat, and on behalf of the Duckpin TV crew here, congratulations. You survived the juggernaut that was the Eastern Classic 2020. God bless. Good job, bud.
Thank you guys so much. It really, truly means a lot to me. It does.
All right, so we're just wrapping things up here at the 2020 Eastern Classic, the 90th annual tournament held in memory of Frank Barber. Just waiting on a couple of bowlers to finish. Anthony Benetti still with one frame to go.
And he's been shut out of the B division. He needed 161 to go past Stacy, and he's only at 104 in the ninth. So Stacy Kelly, again, is going to be your B division champion. Tom Shaw will be the C division champ.
How about this for Stacy Kelly? 2018 B division champion. 2019 B division second place. 2020 B division champion.
He is the Ron Pelletier of the B division.
Just thinking the same thing. Yeah.
All right, so Benetti getting up here to wrap up his Eastern Classic and to really wrap up our Eastern Classic here together with you all again on Duckpin TV. It's been a pretty wild ride this weekend. The scariest part of the roller coaster, I guess, was at the very beginning when we had the highest scores from Chris Kruger, John Blaze, John Zekas, Mark Anastasi, Chuck Paris, Colby D'Antonis. That's the top six. We're just waiting really to see where Anthony Benetti finishes.
So Will Rigney's 185 didn't make a dent this in the last game. I thought maybe he might make a little push.
Yeah, we'll get that in there and see where this went.
Oh, I'm
There he
sorry.
is.
Yep. That
Thank you,
kind of
Pat.
Oh, just a tad.
that was not on our radar as much as it should have been with us trying to get and ultimately getting Chris Kruger on the phone to chat with us about his victory. Rigney is up into fifth, so I got to take back everything I just said.
Well, not everything, but everything after fourth.
Yes, so Rigney will be in fifth, Paris sixth, Colby D'Antonis seventh. A really, really great debut for him.
And I believe Benetti's going to drop off of the 12. So there's going to be a different name that's going to appear, I'm pretty sure, in the top 12.
Yeah, we'll
as
definitely
Anthony
see some.
Benetti had a struggle in his last game.
And of course, all these scores are unofficial. All of the official scores are tabulated by the tournament directors, Maria Kaczewski and Tom Dominique. They've been working here tirelessly for 2 straight weekends to make sure this tournament runs smoothly, along with all the staff here at Lucky Strike Lanes, including the Dunnick family and their staff here at this really great bowling center that hosts this great event every single year for 90 straight years.
So Anthony Benetti finishes with a 120 his 12th game, and we'll see how that affects the standings.
That's definitely gonna drop him down out of the top 12, also into second place in the B division.
Indeed, it does drop him off the leaderboard and brings Jesse Deach back up to 12th. Again, these are all unofficial. There could be some scores out there that we've yet to collect for Game 12 that could make a difference in this leaderboard, but this is pretty much what we'll be working with as we sign off here. I don't know, let's just go around the horn here. Eric, what's the story for you this weekend, these weekends at the Eastern Classic?
Yeah, it's just thinking it's not this weekend. It was last weekend. Look at the top 4 positions. They were occupied by people who bowled last weekend, right? I'm impressed by all the bowlers and all the bowling. Congratulations to Chris Kruger. I mean, it's a fantastic accomplishment. And, yeah, I mean, what a difference from what we've seen in the last, I don't know how many years, where it's always come down to Sunday. It was all about weekend number 1.
Yeah, Kruger and Anastasi from weekend 1, and then Blaze and Zekas from shifts 3 and 4. So this is really, to me, the unusual part is the first bowler from shift 5 that appears on the leaderboard is past winner Will Rigney in 5th place. And basically the theme for the 2 weekends for me was adjustments and how to make the adjustments and whoever made them best. And we heard Chris talk about it. He adjusted from his first block with a lot of strikes. He had to adjust on the second block and start making some spares. And he did, and he hung on and he won. So congratulations to all the bowlers who survived.
Jim, your final thoughts here?
Well, I believe this is Chris Kruger's first major win. He hasn't won a Pro Tour or Pop Witten, so first major tournament victory for Chris Kruger. Congratulations to Chris. Only one to crack the 150 code this tournament this year. 1807 will be good enough for the 2020 Eastern. Congratulations, Chris.
Yeah. And some of my final thoughts here. We've got a lot of young bowlers in the top 12 here. All right, we've got a good, strong generation of bowlers coming up here. Chris Kruger, John Blaze, John Zekas, Mark Anastasi, group Will Rigney and Chuck Paris and Colby D'Antonis, and Brandon Dominique and Jesse Deach all in there. Maybe a changing of the guard here is what we saw this weekend. Some of the more successful bowlers the recent years kind of taking a back seat to some of the new, maybe not totally fresh, but fresher faces. All right, that's it for us here at Duckpin TV. The best thing you can do for Duckpin Bowling is to share some of our videos here, especially this one, and episode 2 and episode 1. Those were the big weekends we saw, or the big first weekend scores. For everyone here at Duckpin TV, Eric Latasha, Pat Rufo, Jim Kaufman, Chris Cano, Steve Cork, I'm Brian Ewing. Thank you, and we hope you enjoyed our presentation of the Eastern Classic.